David expanded a little bit, and Patrice did as well. Obviously we've been talking for a while, just conceptually, and once Patrice indicated that he was likely coming back. His recruiting of David and the conversations that we had privately, started. And I had been in touch with David all through last year, as you guys know, and with Yuri Hamel as well, and mostly with Yuri, just because allowing David, to stay in his own headspace of what he had intended, why he had left in the first place. And I think he was pretty forthright in that it was all about his family and the opportunity to play in his hometown, and everything that represented held true. But we had had extensive talks over the period of time. If he was going to come back, the door would be open, and we always felt that way last year and this year. And knowing some of the cap challenges and some of the things that we were facing, both players were really good and honest about, hey, you're going to try and improve the team, and we want to be part of it, and then almost working backwards from there. So that's why the contractual stuff, took an awful lot of time to just sort of figure out what we were going to be capable of doing and how we could fit them together. And I'm appreciative of Phil Cavalier and Yuri and David and Patrice, and that to allow us flexibility and eventually get it done, and be very, very excited to have them both back.
A lot of people have kind of characterized this as maybe one last run, given where Bergeron and Krejci are in their careers, and just the cap and everything else, situations with this team, and that it could look a lot different after this current season, moving forward after that. Do you think that's accurate? Do you think along those lines as well? Kind of how do you view this, bringing those two back right now?
Bless you, Emma. That's going to be Patrice's decision. Ultimately, I've said that all along. He dictates the time on how long he's going to play hockey. He can play for as long as he really wants to tell you the truth, in my opinion, for his impact in the game. He was pretty adamant that he's going to take things year by year and reevaluate. And David Krejci, last year was a difficult one. You're losing a really good player, an important player for your team. We did a decent job of bringing in some players that we felt would complement our group. Didn't accomplish what we wanted to, and then you have the opportunity to bring David back just because you know the player he is. I don't think there's any timeline about how long those guys want to play. I think they've left it open-ended. They are very much living in the moment, and recognizing. They've seen several of their teammates, previously, move on, retire. So I think they're honest about where they are, and but they're awfully really good players. So I think and they're driven, to succeed, and excited about playing with the group that we currently have. We have subsequent plans in place as an organization. We have to. Not unlike when we got the news with David Krejci last year, and having to pivot and make other decisions as a result of that. And maybe there's a pivot point, as I've referenced, you're not going to replace Patrice. That's just doesn't happen. You have to grow the next player and hope that you Jed Clampett and Striking Oil somewhere, right? In all honesty, there's some people might not even know that reference point in this room. You got it. But that's the bottom line. You try and prepare as best you can for it, but ultimately you just have to move on and go to Plan B. And we have an awfully lot of good players in place. We may have a younger tilt if that's the case, and that'll be by design if we ultimately want to go in that direction. But we're a really competitive team. We wanted to improve our team this year. I think we have. We got to get healthy. You got to stay healthy, and then you try and take a run. But we're going to be fine from the standpoint of the number of really good players we currently have, and the age band that they're in. It's the next wave that you got to grow and cross your fingers that you've hit on.
Do you guys project Krejci back in the NHL after a year off? What were the expectations for his game? Obviously, you're familiar with it, but 36 now. How do you see him as an NHL player this year?
Well, we watched David an awful lot last year, in particular in the international tournaments and how he had done. You also get feedback from other people that are just complimenting, boy, David can still play, he can still impact the game. as an organization, we have done a decent job in Patrice's case and David's case of taking away some primary minutes and spreading some things around in situational minutes. And we'll continue to do that. I think the depth that we now have in guys that can play in the middle of the ice, and Pavel Zacha is part of that, and Charlie Coyle's part of that, and obviously with Stanika and Nosh. I think we're in a decent spot. It'll be interesting what Jimmy decides to do, Monty decides to do with our power play to start the year, and whether or not there's, David finds his way in that top unit with Marsh and Charlie being out, where he plays in that unit. So those are things for Jimmy and the group to figure out. Impact-wise, he wants to play, and impact the game. And ultimately, he doesn't care how old he is. He just shows up and plays hockey, which he's always done and always performed, and he's always been productive. So we don't expect that to drop off.
Do you have an injury update on some of these guys who have surgery? Awesome.
Everybody's doing well, in their timelines. Again, we always put a band on things to prepare for, whether or not a guy's doing better than expected or not necessarily. And right now, we're, as indicated, I think the guys are following along the trajectory that was laid out, and should have hopefully we don't have any surprises between now and then.
Where do you stand with the talks with David Pastrnak and the agent?
Ongoing would probably be the best way to describe it. We've been in regular communication. Obviously, David's still over in Europe, and likelihood is he'll come back, and we'll talk between now and then. When he gets back, we'll maybe have a better idea of a ideal timeline, but I don't have one today, and you guys know me well enough. I'm not going to comment publicly on ongoing negotiations, but we've been in regular contact with JP.
Can you risk going into the season without him signing?
Can I risk it?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's part of the business. Leverages are what they are, and the conversations are ongoing. We've made our intentions known all along. We'll continue to do that, and we'll go from there. But, yeah, as far as entering the season with it, not a problem.
Just a little bit about that field, but can you talk about visiting of Charlie into this organization and to the NHL as a whole?
You have something to announce that I don't have to announce?
Just in case.
I certainly don't want to get ahead of anything in regards to Zdeno and what his own personal decisions are going to be. As far as his legacy, the Boston Bruins, he goes down as one of the best and greatest. Really ultimately changed the culture of where the group was when he came on board and won a Stanley Cup and was a champion in this city, both on and off the ice, and an iconic player, obviously, to have the most games played ever as a defenseman in the National Hockey League. That one might not be broken. As a person, just a really special individual on and off the ice.
The Zacha signing, what factors kind of led to both parties agreeing to a one-year deal as opposed to maybe something a bit longer term?
Yeah, Evan Gold and Paul Capizano and Peter McTavish, they did a lot of work with Pavel contract in a short period of time. Certainly explored longer-term deals, and I think as an organization, we've done a pretty good job of targeting players that we've acquired and then being able to extend, whether that's right away or down the road. Pavel's a guy we've indicated that we'd like to continue to talk, and we can't do that until later on in the year, but we will. Hopefully find a common ground there. I think that getting a player in, getting acclimated, and feeling good about his situation, both where he's going to play, which may be different in the start of the year as the middle of the year, and certainly going forward, and him having a clear indication of that from us as an organization, from the coaching staff. I think Pavel was comfortable, really putting himself in a position where he could parlay this, and we're comfortable as well. I think we've had enough talks that we understand where the marketplace is and maybe where he might fit in there, and hopefully we can find common ground and move forward. We'd like to have him here long term.
Going off that, with Krejci and Bergeron's future up in the air after this year, do you look at Zacha as a guy who potentially be a top 6 center for you guys in the future?
Well, we certainly hope so. You play with better players, and opportunity-wise, and hopefully he can take advantage of that. I think early on you're going to get an indication. He may not be playing the middle of the ice. He may be playing the wing. But we think he has that upside in a positional need for us, and as well as the age band. For us, it was a combination. You got size, you got positional need, you got versatility of the player, and an age that fits in the dynamic, as I referenced with Joe's question of that next wave of players that are gonna move forward in the future with us. Yeah, he was even referencing, I think, he had talked to us and he made a comment that Mark Recchi was telling him, he needs to shoot and be a little more selfish. And he does have a really, really good shot. Where you play him on the power play, from our stake with Marsh being out, as you go in the other elbow. I mean, those are conversations that Jimmy and I have had or started to have, and he'll tinker with, and those guys will figure it out. And John Gruden will be a big part of the power play side of things. He has all the talent, to be able to take advantage of the situational opportunity, and it'd be up to him to hopefully finish maybe at a little higher rate. And as I referenced, he's played with good players and younger players, and he'll play with good players that are established here, and hopefully just take advantage of it. But we do believe there's a higher offensive ceiling there as a good two-way player, but with a higher offensive ceiling that hopefully he can tap into.
Is there any chance Lysell can make the team?
There's always a chance a young player can make the team. I referenced David Pastrnak a number of years ago and spent some time in Providence and came back from the World Juniors, and then went in and played well, and it was hard to keep him off, whether or not he's physically ready to play at that level, and Fabian will be the exact same way. Johnny Beecher, whoever, Mark McLaughlin, whoever's going to be, opportunity is going to be there. Stadika and Steen and guys that are putting in time. Jacob Lauko's another one. So, yeah, I mean, we're not going to hold the best players off our team. We may have time where we can buy some time when a player, if they're not waiver eligible and such, but ultimately we want to play the best players. So if Fabian comes in and stands out to the point we feel he's ready, then that's fine. But we don't need to rush things with any of our young players. Put them in an opportunity, allow them to see if they can succeed.
Exciting to see how a guy like Riley Duran has elevated his profile amongst his peers, it seems like the last year.
Yeah, I mean, watching Riley play 3 or 4 times last year in person, you're really growing into his body. He's maturing as a player. I think he's gotten a lot more confidence. I think the progression for him in particular going through the USHL was interesting to watch, getting acclimated, getting comfortable, and then sort of, really taking strides. I think you're seeing that in Providence. I think Nate Lehman and his group does a really good job in Providence in general, but I think Nate has tapped into Riley, to get the best out of him each night. And I think that's translating into a World Junior opportunity that they got off to a good start last night with Team USA, and we're excited. He was a player that we saw locally, again, had attributes of his game, but they were sort of in silos, so to speak, rather than putting the whole package. I think he's starting to put the packages of those talent and again growing into his physical stature that's exciting for us.
Frederick's a guy that seems like he was eager for a reset this offseason. Curious what your conversations have been like with him. Do you see him as a guy who can play in your middle six? Is he really more of that kind of fourth line guy, agitator, offensive upside? Where are you guys kind of funneling him as you move forward with him?
Yeah, I don't think that's been determined in terms of what his offensive ceiling is. Going back to the numbers and the situations he played at Wisconsin and took advantage of playing with players there, both in the middle and the wing. I think he's now shown that he's capable of doing both. I think he wants to be a more impactful player offensively and affect the game overall, physically, and stay healthy. There's no way he's just a fourth line player for us. I think that he has a higher ceiling and an impact. I think he wants to get that. The conversation piece, is really going on with Monty and him establishing a relationship there to get the best out of the player. Put himself, situations that he can take advantage of, and hopefully remain confident. I think his confidence in his own play has some variance to it that needs to smooth out, as all NHL players when they're, going through some challenges, and to come back in the best shape that he possibly can, regardless of where he plays, in the middle or the wing. Just, be the player he's capable of being, and not worry about some of the other things that, sometimes creep in, especially for young players.
Bringing in 3 skating skills, people now, does that speak to the value that Kim was providing when he was here doing that, or does it speak to maybe broadening the scope of, what you're doing with the skating and skills organization?
It's a little all the above. I mean, as I referenced earlier, Jay, he took a really good person and a good professional from our organization. And Kimmer will be missed. I wish him, well, in his next endeavors. He had an itch towards coaching. And what's interesting is we were in the process of looking at expanding his role in our footprint here in the skills and skating development side of things. So this sort of prompted us to really expand it, to the point where we have a definitive need that has grown here from a standpoint of return to play and the conditioning side of things, not just because we have current injuries, but we had players that have gone through it. Johnny McLean's a guy that I've known for an awfully long time. He's been in the same footprint. He's really excited about the opportunity to come in and work with our players at this level. And Tom Ford and David Breen are two guys that have walked in the same circle, and they're going to be able to probably tap in, either backfill with Johnny here, or most importantly, tap in with our Providence guys on a really more regular basis, which Kimmer had been pulled away a little bit in that regard, as well as communicate and break down video on the skill and skating side of things of all our prospects. So there's a much wider berth that we wanted to kind of touch upon with the addition of all three guys, and we're excited about, and they are, about joining the organization and hopefully, making an impact on the growth and development of our young players.
Have you guys done the maths, the cap math, assuming health, if you have to move money out at some point during the year, or is that just kind of wait and see with the insurance?
I hope we've done, significant math to be able to put the pieces together. We have some challenges, as do several teams, and how we do that, be it through trade or be it through waivers that really all teams are going to have to face. We don't have an issue. Certainly through November, we don't have an issue because of LTI and the likelihood that we'll be in LTI with the injuries we have, the amount of injuries we have. But coming out of it is the math challenge, and yeah, we'll have to unwind a little bit, but we have some mechanisms to be able to do that. We know what the levers will be, and you just don't know what's going to happen between now and then, anyways. So we're prepared to go in a couple different directions and explore what we have to, but we have mechanisms in place to be able to accomplish the goal I think you're asking.
In this cap world, is that the players understand it can be moved at any time, but is that something you have to address kind of with the group to say like, hey, we have X amount of defensemen, one of you guys could be on the way out, or is that just something you just kind of let sit?
Yeah, that's one that I think all the vast majority of teams that are chasing what we are going to face that and have some challenges, injuries, aside, and how you manage it as an organization. It's asset management to a large degree. As I referenced earlier, you got waiver decisions. So I think it's pretty well known around the league now, and guys know that there just could be a tightening at some point in time, and the players are involved in that.
How confident are you now with Patrice and David back that this roster can weather those first couple of months, or however long it is, without Charlie and without Marchand?
Yeah, I mean, our forward group is deep, and we're going to have a real competitive camp for some spots. The back end, we're going to have to weather, as you reference, and have guys that are going to come in and get some opportunity. And I feel good about our goaltending and situation that those guys should be much more comfortable, and knowing that they have to sort of be a backbone there while we go through the early parts with a couple of key guys out in the back end. And but I think the depth of our forward group should really help us get through the time period without Marsh in particular.